Good evening, Americans, and welcome to the Ed Show live from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I'm ready to go. Let's get to work.
We're going to have to counter this sort of attack all over again.
Governor Scott Walker's hopes for the White House may have just ended.
There's been some legal action out in Wisconsin.
We have a major smoking gun.
Look at the facts.
Court documents revealed Thursday.
Prosecutors say the Walker's aides tampered with campaign finances during his 2012 recall election.
Claim Walker and his staff worked illegally with conservative groups
to help him survive a 2012 recall election,
violating Wisconsin's donation limits and disclosure rules.
The facts are pretty clear.
You know, it's Walker's own words.
People might want to listen to what we've been saying, you know, since way back in 2011.
Good to have you with us tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. Back in the winter of 2011, when I spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, when the protests were taking place outside the state capitol, I had people ask me, Ed, why are you going after this Walker guy so much? Well, I didn't like the fact that he hates unions. He was going after public employees. He was cutting education by $1 billion. He was going after Badger Care. I didn't like what he was doing. But I had no idea that there were these kinds of legal problems on the horizon. If Scott Walker ever thought he had a shot at the White House, he can forget about it, at least for now. Walker was going to be lucky to keep his job in November in the heated governor's race in the Badger State. Prosecutors are now on the scene. They allege Walker himself was at the center of a criminal scheme to illegally coordinate fundraising and campaign activity among conservative groups. Now, let's be clear about what happened here. Under Wisconsin law, third-party political groups, they are allowed to work together on campaign activity, but they are barred from coordinating that work with actual candidates. Well, new documents released in the investigation don't look very good for the governor of Wisconsin. Prosecutors say that Walker was involved in a wide-ranging scheme. The documents reveal Walker's campaign tacitly admitted to violating Wisconsin law. Prosecutors argue this scheme pervaded nearly every aspect of the campaign activities during 2011 and in his recall of 2012. Sounds pretty conclusive to me. The smoking gun has to be this email Walker sent to Republican dark money king Karl Rove. On May 4th, 2011, Walker emailed Rove saying, quote, bottom line, RJ helps keep in place a team that is wildly successful in Wisconsin. We are running 9 recall elections, and it will be like 9 congressional markets in every market in the state. Now, just look at that comment, folks. Is that a sales job or what? This is Scott Walker saying, come on, Carl, bring some of that money into the state. Look how we're organized. Look what we're doing. Look what we're up against. We need the money. You can do it. Help us out. Here's how good we're going to be. R.J. Johnson, he is a top advisor to the Wisconsin Club for Growth. The Club for Growth is the central player in the alleged criminal activity. Bottom line for Walker, he is in serious legal trouble. And I think Walker's alleged criminal activity had a major impact in the 2012 recall election in which Walker won. Well, look at the numbers. He's working over Rove and all these outside groups, allegedly illegally. He outraised Tom Barrett, his challenger, 7-1 in money. 2/3 of Walker's $30 million to stay governor came from out of state. You be the judge. Scott Walker has no boundaries whatsoever when it comes to unethical behavior. Earlier today, Walker was in damage control. No better place than Fox News for a conservative. He ran to the kids on the curvy couch for this hard-hitting, in-depth interview.
We got to point out, you were never charged with anything. But at one point, they alleged that you had a central role in a criminal fundraising scheme. Okay, tell us what you did. Well, don't just take my word for it. Look at the facts. The facts are pretty clear. You've had not one but 2 judges, a state judge and a federal judge. A state judge, a well-respected Court of Appeals judge, and a federal judge more recently have both looked at this argument
And in the past, not just recently, remember, this is not new news. It's just newly released yesterday because documents were open, but no charges, case over. Both judges said they didn't buy the argument. They didn't think that anything was done that was illegal, and so they've gone forward and not only said we don't buy it, they actually shut the case down, both at the state and at the federal level. So many of the national media, and even some here in Wisconsin, are looking at the state backwards. This is a case that's been resolved.
Oh, he can sell. There's no doubt about it. Very talented when it comes to spin. Just because two right-wing judges ruled Walker's in his favor doesn't mean the case is over. Walker is flat out lying when he says this case has been resolved. It's far from resolved. The case is currently before a federal appeals court. Walker was also whining about this being a liberal conspiracy to tarnish his reputation.
It looks like they're just trying to trash you.
Oh, I think there's no doubt. This is a prime example of what happens when you take on the big government special interest. They're looking for ways to come at us. They'll continue to do it.
So the show's over, but they're trying to trash you. Are they trying to do to you what they did to Christie in New Jersey?
Oh, again, I think there's no doubt. This is one of those where the media jumps on this. Some of the left spin this. You get our detractors out there trying to claim there's something more than there is.
I tell you what, folks, you know what we call that and where I come from? That's Class D softball. That's real slow pitch. This is not a media conspiracy to trash or tarnish Scott Walker. Walker trashed himself. He's the one who sent the email. We're reporting the facts. Meanwhile, the other Republican governor, good comparison here, who is facing an investigation over illegal activity in handling his situation much differently in New Jersey. After Bridgegate blew up, New Jersey Governor Christie came out, and I guess you could say he paid the piper. I mean, he stepped out in front of the microphones and the cameras of the folks for 90 minutes, gave a 90-minute press conference, took a beating. He faced the cameras and answered for illegal actions of his staff. Scott Walker, what did he do? Well, he did the opposite. Walker took the easy route, the easy highway. He ran over to Fox News. He did a 3-minute softball interview with expert analysis like this.
These are documents that, for a case that does not exist anymore, it's not going anywhere, and they're just opening it up. It looks like they're just trying to trash you. We got to point out, you were never charged with anything. So the show's over, but they're trying to trash you. Scott Walker answering the charges. Not that there are any charges, just people trying to trash him.
Give me a break. That interview on Fox News has zero credibility. If Walker had to do a 90-minute Chris Christie-style press conference, he would be simply toast. Keep in mind, this is all about Citizens United. This is the floodgates wide open, and then somebody who thinks that they can circumvent the law. Bottom line is, he's clearly involved. Any fair-minded person can see that Scott Walker, his mitts are all over this email, and to Karl Rove, and we know what that is all about. He outraised his opponent, and he did it questionably. No question about that. But I remember being outside the state capitol where over 100,000 people were protesting in the winter and the spring of 2011. Where are those people going to be in the next few weeks? I don't think there needs to be any more judgment coming from a prosecutor or from a courtroom. It is the arena of public opinion that is going to get Scott Walker. This man has attacked unions. This man has attacked the middle class. He's attacked public education. He has twisted the truth on Fox News time and time again. And we're not far away from a big election in Wisconsin, just months away. This is certainly going to tarnish his efforts. Now it will be very interesting to follow the money and more emails. Get your cell phones out. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question. Do you think Scott Walker is telling the truth? Text A for yes, text B for no to 67622. You can always go to our blog at ed.msnbc.com. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. Let me bring in Wisconsin State Senator John Erpenbach. Senator, good to have you with us tonight.
Hi, Ed.
Today was a pretty big media day in Wisconsin. I mean, Walker took a beating on headlines across the state. What kind of an impact do you think this is going to have, and do you think that there's any doubt that he was involved in illegal activity?
Well, based on what I've read so far, no, there isn't. But you have to start from the very beginning here, Ed. If an independent group runs a commercial, they have to put a disclaimer on that says not authorized by any candidate or candidate's agent. They have to do that because collusion, as you're pointing out, is illegal in Wisconsin. R.J. Johnson is both an agent of Scott Walker's campaign and an agent of an independent expenditure. And just the fact that we saw the governor emailing Karl Rove, as you pointed out, talking about what was going on with these groups, puts himself right in the middle of this. So there's no doubt in my mind, first of all, that you are absolutely correct. The investigation's not over. It's ongoing. And this investigation will continue to be ongoing until either charges are brought and people are indicted, or the prosecutor says, there's nothing here. Everybody go home. So we'll see what happens with that in the end. But yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that the governor is involved, and there's no doubt in my mind that the governor is involved and is right in the center of this thing.
Well, John, he went on Fox News this morning and said that the case is over. What's your response to that?
It's not over. It's not over. You pointed out that the decision by a federal judge is being appealed. The decision by a state judge is being appealed. And I have never heard of a judge telling a prosecutor, stop doing your job. So the investigation clearly is not over. And again, I can't stress this enough. The investigation will not be over until the prosecutor says their people will be indicted and or people will not be indicted. But in the meantime, the investigation is ongoing.
So what are the Democrats planning to do about this? Just ride it out, support Mary Burke, and see where this goes? What about impeachment? What about the pulse of the people? What's going to happen here?
Well, we've talked about this before, Ed, on your show, that impeachment isn't possible at all. First of all, the legislature is controlled by Republicans in both houses. But I think what Democrats are going to do, and I know what Mary Burke is going to do, is she's going to continue sticking to what has brought her basically to a toss-up situation in this campaign right now. The last poll had it at 46-46. She's talking about job creation, giving families opportunities here in Wisconsin. Scott Walker got some really bad news yesterday that was sort of buried. We're 37th in the nation in job creation, and within the Midwest, we are in 10th place out of 10 states in job creation. So our economy is really struggling here in Wisconsin. Scott Walker's policies are not working, and that's obvious just based on the numbers that we saw yesterday. But in the meantime, Mary Burke continues to talk about the economy and bringing jobs back to Wisconsin, which is what she should be doing. What we do need... Senator,
are you expecting charges to be filed? Are you expecting charges to be filed against Walker?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. Based on what I have read, again, collusion is illegal in the state of Wisconsin. His campaign chief strategist is also in charge of independent expenditures in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know what more you need to define what collusion is. Again, it can't be a candidate's agent or the candidate. Both the agent, Johnson, and the candidate, Governor Walker, are involved with independent expenditures. So again, I would tend to think if laws are being broken, indictments will be forthcoming.
And Senator, I'd like you to characterize what you think of the email that Scott Walker sent to Karl Rove. I mean, to me, it seems like he's begging for money. It's got a sales pitch written all over it. How would you characterize it?
I think you're right. Either that or he's defending R.J. Johnson, but obviously Karl Rove has some concerns about what was going on back then. I don't know why Karl Rove would have concerns with what's going on back then in state Senate elections that the governor was talking about. I can understand why he'd be concerned about the governor's recall, but I don't know. I would love to see the full email, and hopefully someday we will, and I think it's incumbent upon the governor to get all of the information in front of the voters as soon as possible so they can make their minds up. Rather than having this being battled out in the headlines, I think voters deserve to know every single thing that the governor was involved with, and the governor needs to be honest here and upfront here. It might be old news to the governor because he's been questioned, I'm sure, by investigators, but this isn't old news to the voters of Wisconsin. This is brand new. And again, this ongoing investigation will continue until the door completely closes, either with indictments or no indictments at all.
And quickly, your thoughts of him going to Fox News on a national platform instead of holding a press conference in Wisconsin?
Well, I'm wondering if the governor's campaign actually delivered the questions to Fox News so Fox News could in turn ask governor the questions that he knows the answers to. Again, it's really frustrating. The governor should go to the people of Wisconsin and explain, not Fox and Friends.
State Senator John Erpenbach, Wisconsin, great to have you with us tonight. Let's turn now to Ring of Fire radio host and America's attorney, Mike Papantonio. Mike, you have seen the documents. Your judgment, is it clear that prosecutors think that Walker was involved here?
These prosecutors have a lot to work with, Ed. I think the important thing is you have a prosecutor who doesn't seem to be willing to give up. And I think what the prosecutor is going to do is simply, depending on what the appellate court does, the prosecutor simply changes the way they approach the case. They look for new witnesses. They come up with new theories of the case. I think the reason that sometimes this case is hard to follow is because it sounds convoluted, but it really isn't. It comes down to something very simple. As you pointed out, Wisconsin Club for Growth brings in millions of dollars. They do it secretly with shell games. They move that money around on Scott Walker's behalf. In comes R.J. Johnson. Johnson says to the 501c4 groups, listen, here's what I want to do with you. I want to coordinate the messaging that you engage with. I want to coordinate when you deliver the message, how you deliver the message. Now, here's the problem. The 501c4, to get the 501c4 status, already had to sign an affidavit saying we will not engage in political conduct on behalf of a candidate. Scott Walker obviously is the candidate. They knew when they signed the affidavit, they were limited on what they could do legally. Now, this hasn't been the major part of this case so far, but the 501c4 is where this starts breaking down. If you have somebody with a small 501c4 who has coordinated with R.J. Johnson, and they know that the reason for the 501c4 should be limited to improving social and civic concerns and not being out front for a candidate, they know they've done that. At some point, you know what happens, Ed? The prosecutor talks to that person and says, do you really want to be part of this thing? That's where it starts breaking down for Scott Walker.
So you were a former prosecutor. Do you think they have enough to file charges?
I think they have it right now. Unfortunately, we have this Judge Randa, who, by the way, is a Republican appointee, who said the most incredible thing. This judge said, you know what? This might be, basically, this is where he comes at. It could be illegal, but they have been so clever in the way they've used their loopholes that I'm going to give them a free pass. Literally, that is the way this opinion reads. Understand, this prosecutor is also a Republican. This prosecutor understands that there are smoking guns everywhere. There's no question in this prosecutor's mind that there are emails and memos that he swears to. This prosecutor has to take on the position that he says clearly there is a clear crime. Why this judge has decided to give him a free pass, I don't know. I can speculate, but I can tell you an appellate court looking at these facts already are going to say there's enough to go ahead. My prediction is if Scott Walker isn't indicted, there are going to be some people indicted in this case, and it might be people that don't live in Wisconsin.
All right. Mike Papantonio, good to have you with us tonight. Appreciate your time here on The Ed Show.